read 7 books throughout the month of October, which is the most amount of books I have read in a month before, so I'm very, very proud. I'm very impressed with myself. So I wanted to pop on here and do a little wrap up for you guys, let you know my thoughts and a little bit about these books. So if you're interested, then keep watching. So the first book that I read is Lisa Jewell's None of This Is True. This is more of a mystery book, but it's got some thriller elements in it, and it follows Alex and Josie. Alex owns a podcast and Josie is a woman who is looking to reinvent herself. Alex invites her onto the podcast and things just start getting really crazy. They start unraveling and getting stranger by the minute, stranger by the day. Basically everything just unravels, unfolds into this really, really wild adventure between Alex, Josie and their families, and this is just an incredible, incredible mystery novel. I couldn't guess what was happening in this book at all, and usually when I read a mystery book or read a thriller book or whatever genre it is, I am able to kind of piece together little bits of the story, and I'm like, okay, I think this is going here, or I think this character is doing this or is involved this way, or whatever it might be. I'm usually able to kind of put those puzzle pieces together. This book was an exception. I was not able to do this once throughout this book. It kept me on edge, it kept me guessing, and it was an absolute page turner. My first experience with Lisa Jewell as well, so I'm really, really impressed, and I do plan to pick up another Lisa Jewell book after reading this one. So yeah, I ended up giving this a 5 out of 5 stars. Okay, and the second book that I ended up reading was Clown in a Cornfield by Adam Cesar. I've been hearing a lot about this book on Book Talk for a while, so I was really happy to finally be able to pick it up, but honestly it left me feeling a little bit unfulfilled and a little bit disappointed. It was okay. It followed a young daughter and her father who moved to a fairly remote town, and she ends up, you know, making some rebel kind of friends, like the group of friends. It was very high school slasher, and there's basically a killer clown on the loose. So that is pretty much the idea and the plot behind this story, and while I really enjoy that and I love a good slasher, I felt like this was just, it was a little bit boring. I didn't really care about the characters, so there wasn't any emotion there for me, and I didn't really feel myself moved by deaths and things like that happened in this book without spoiling anything. I just felt disappointed. So this was very middle of the road for me. I think I ended up giving it a 2 out of 5 stars, but it was fine. It was fairly fun, but I probably wouldn't recommend. Okay, and then I read The Troop by Nick Cutter. Now this one was, I felt so mixed about this, and I don't know if you guys have seen my previous YouTube video, but I actually made a video about this, and I made some TikTok videos about this as well. I felt very conflicted. So this book follows a group of Boy Scouts and their scout leader, and they venture to a remote island one night when they're just, you know, chilling out. It's late at night and they're getting ready for bed. This unknown man stumbles onto the island and he's very, very sick. Now, the twist in this book is that it's not just some, you know, known sickness or some bug or stomach illness or whatever it is. He is like starving, right? He stumbles on this island and he's like, oh, I'm so hungry. And no matter what he eats, no matter how much he eats, he's so hungry and he just needs to eat, to the point where he would eat anything. And I mean anything. That is pretty much what the story is about. And the scout leader is actually a doctor as well. So he's trying to figure out what the dealio is and what's going on with this man, all while protecting these kids, and all hell breaks loose. This illness turns out to be much more sinister than they thought it was, and it is highly contagious as well. So it is a fight for survival. This entire thing is just one huge fight for survival, and it's very emotional because there's children involved, so naturally it's like, you know, it's quite hard to read, but that's not the only reason why I felt like it was hard to read. I actually felt like this book was kind of gross. There were moments in this book that were very upsetting, even for me. I've read a lot of horror, but there were some moments in this book which I'm just like, this is either too disgusting or it was just plain upsetting and disturbing to read. There was a part in this with a cat, which features a fair amount of like very graphic animal violence, and that's something that I struggle with personally. I don't like reading about that, especially when it's with cats or any animal for that matter. But so I really had a hard time reading that, and at that point I felt like I was going to put it down. It was going to be a DNF, but I ended up being so curious as to where the story was going, and I felt like I really needed to see what happened to these kids and how this whole thing ended and what this illness was. So I did end up finishing it, and I am glad that I finished it because overall this is a really good book, and Nick Cutter is a fantastic author. I love the way it was written, but for me it was, I think I gave this a 3 out of 5 just because I think this was just a little bit too extreme for me, and I didn't appreciate the animal violence. So yeah, that was like the only downside to this. So just a trigger warning before you go into it if you're keen on reading it, but overall it was enjoyable. Then I went on to reading Where the Dead Sleep by Joshua Moling, and I seriously cannot recommend this book enough. I love Joshua Moling's first book, which is And There He Kept Her. Absolutely love that book so much. So this is the second book in the Packard series, which is the same detective. So that's the detective that features in the first book. It follows his story again, and he is such an incredible character. He's so funny, and I just love his whole backstory as well. I feel like as a character he's very well fleshed out and very like believable. So I was really happy to follow another one of his adventures. It's I believe it is set in the same town as well, but this is fantastic. It follows the Ben Packard, the detective, as I said, and it is small town, whodunit, murder mystery, body turns up and they're trying to figure out who did it, and there's lots of clues. It's very much like it will put you in FBI mode, and I love that. So this is definitely like full-blown mystery. I wouldn't say there's much thriller, and there isn't horror in this, but it's still a little bit spooky, and it's just so interesting. And from start to finish this kept me gripped, it kept me interested, it kept me wondering, trying to figure out who did it, trying to figure out the cause and who's behind this situation. And as I said, Ben Packard is an amazing character as well. So also I've heard there's going to be a third one. I don't know if that's true, but I heard about that. So fingers crossed there is going to be a third one, because Joshua Moling is an absolute amazing author. Auto-buy, auto-read author for me, for sure. So then I read There's Someone Inside Your House by Stephanie Perkins. This is the second Stephanie Perkins book that I've read. I read the Woods one. I need to remind myself what it's called. The Woods Are Always Watching by Stephanie Perkins, and I absolutely devoured that book. Her books are a little bit on the shorter side, which is nice if you're looking for something like that. But this is a very fun slasher, just a group of friends, and it's just very exciting to read. I really love the way it's written, and honestly for a YA horror, a YA thriller, I'd say this is YA horror actually. This is really scary. I would say this is bordering on being full-blown horror for sure. Even just the way it's written, like it's very detailed. There's a fair amount of gore in this book as well. Yeah, there's a Netflix film which is also very good, but I ended up rating this 5 out of 5 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Second book for Stephanie Perkins, and I am definitely interested in investing in more of her works. This was great. This was a great book. Okay, and then I went on to Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister. First book I've read from Gillian McAllister, and I was so impressed with this. The thing that sold me on this book was the premise. Basically, this is about a lady who witnesses her son commit a crime, commit a murder outside the house late at night. Every time she goes to sleep at night, it's a day before, and that repeats until she figures out why her son did it. I read that on the back of the book and I'm like, yes, I have to read this. I don't think I've read anything like that before. I love the whole time loop concept. That's so fascinating, and this definitely lived up to the hype. If you are looking for a crime, mystery, a little bit of thriller, this is absolutely one that you have to read. I ended up just devouring this book so fast. I loved the characters so much, and yeah, this was fantastic. I rated this 5 out of 5 stars, and I'm already looking at buying another Gillian McAllister book because I loved it so much. So yeah, this was really good. And last but certainly not least, I read Hide by Kirsten White, another first author from me, and this was okay. It was middle ground for me. I ended up rating this 4 out of 5 stars. I think that it was really fun. It's basically set in an abandoned amusement park, and a bunch of people enter a hide and seek competition to win a load of money. I think it's like $100,000 or something like that, but it's kind of a life-changing amount of money. What they don't know is that this is not an innocent, you know, children's game of hide and seek, and there are deadly consequences. So yeah, this is very supernatural. Supernatural horror, supernatural thriller. If that's your thing, then I would recommend it. However, I felt like this definitely became quite repetitive after a while. There was a lot of, is this a game? Is this not a game? Is this a game? And while I think it's valid, like totally valid for the players to be questioning like what's going on, I think that that was just included a few too many times throughout the book, and it just began feeling quite repetitive. Parts it felt like it was dragging on a little bit, but overall I did end up rating this 4 out of 5 stars. It was very near a 5 stars. But yeah, I think that it was pretty good, and I was impressed with the writing, and I loved the setting. The whole abandoned amusement park is so cool and so fun. This was a really fun read, so I would highly recommend it. Now that is all the books that I read throughout October, and I'm decided not to include the 2 books that I DNF'd this month because I didn't technically read them all the way through, so I feel like it's not really necessarily valid to be able to give a review on a book that I haven't finished. But I did try and read The Handyman Method by Nick Cutter and Dark Harvest by Norman Partridge. I got maybe 150 pages into The Handyman Method, and honestly the main character was just insufferable. I could not do it anymore, and I just didn't want to pick it up and read it. So I decided to unfortunately DNF that one. And Dark Harvest, I honestly had no idea what was going on. I was so confused, and I was so excited to read this because it was going to be my Halloween book. I was going to read this all on Halloween night, and I was really, really excited to do that. I mean, look at the cover, like perfect Halloween vibes, right? But yeah, I had no idea what was going on. I just wasn't gripped by it. I wasn't really interested. And so I've just got too many books to like suffer through a book that I'm not enjoying. There were those 2 DNFs, but overall, I think it was a really good month. I'm really happy with the reads. I think that the majority of the books I read were really enjoyable, and I'm glad to have read them. And I discovered quite a few new authors that I really like that have now become authors that I will be keeping my eye out for. Jenny McAllister, definitely one. Kirsten White, Lisa Jewell. Yeah, like they are amazing authors, so I'm really happy about that. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I am very excited to see what I'll be reading throughout November. I've already started on my first book for this month. I will let you guys know what that is in a future video or on TikTok. I typically do daily videos on TikTok if you are interested in seeing all my reading updates and stuff like that, like smaller videos, shorter videos. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please feel free to leave a like, and please feel free to subscribe if you want to see more, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye everyone!